Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's episode of The Contented Narrative, where we look at Nothing Lasts Forever, a book by Roderick Thorpe that was released in 1966 and was made into the film Die Hard in 1988. Now, I'll be looking at four things as usual. I'll be looking at how good is the film, how good is the book, how well does the plot take from the book, and overall, how well does the film take everything from the book. Now, we'll start with the film. Now, I absolutely adore this film. This is, and before anyone says anything, it is 100% a Christmas film. It is set at Christmas, come on. So this is a film that I watch every year. Every year around Christmas, I adore this film. You know, I love the blend of the normal cop being in the wrong place at the wrong time and somehow managing to take on all these terrorists. And basically just being like a little thorn in the side of Gruber. It's got great pacing, it's got great acting, it's got great characters. It keeps you on the edge of your seat because you really want him to succeed, but also you sort of sat there being like, you know, will they figure out that, you know, Ms. Jadiro is the one that's married to the guy that's messing everything up for everyone? And, you know, it's absolutely just a great blend of absolutely everything. And as I said, I watch this film every December, and honestly, it never gets old. And each character is unique. Each character has their little nuances behind them, and honestly, I just adore it. I would tell everyone to watch this film anytime in the year, but especially at Christmas. I would definitely recommend putting this on your must-watch in December kind of playlist. And it gets that 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely does. Now, the book I read because I adore the film and I wanted to do it for this channel. And the book is okay. It tells a retired cop who takes on terrorists barefoot, which is pretty much what happens in the film. And he defeats them all single-handedly, pretty much. Now, because I've seen Die Hard so many times and because I've watched the film and loved the film before I read the book, I think it did cloud my vision when I was reading this book. But it seemed like an all-right book. Like, it didn't really stand out to me. It's something that you can kind of read as a holiday read, you know, if you just wanted to kill a few hours. But it's not something that, you know, if you really want to sink your teeth into a good book that you can't put down, I don't think this is kind of the book for that. You know, the premise is good, the characters are okay, and I like the idea of this one guy kind of taking on all these terrorists and succeeding, but it felt a little dragged out at times, and I think, you know, it delved into his thought process behind every single action a little bit too much for me. Now, as I said, I'd rather enjoy the storyline. I did feel a bit sorry for the main guy, but I likely probably won't be going back to this story. I probably won't be going back to this book. I'd give it a 5 out of 10. As I said, it's a good holiday read. You know, if you take it away with you, that's absolutely fine, but it's not something that you would proactively go to. Not in my mind anyway. I mean, you're more than welcome to give it a go. Now, the film starts with John McClane being a bad flyer, so he's advised by someone to take his shoes off and sort of scrunch his toes on a carpet when he lands to orient himself. Then he gets picked up in a limo by Argyle, the limo driver, and driven to Nakatomi Plaza, where he's meeting his estranged wife as she's at a party, and they're going to see if they can kind of work things out. Now, the book starts with Joseph Leyland being driven to the airport so he can go see his daughter. His wife is dead in the book, and the daughter works for a company called Claxon Oil. Now, you know, that's a huge difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call the main character Jay, because obviously you've got Joseph and you've got John, so I'm just going to call the main character Jay. It makes it a little bit easier. So in both it is set around Christmas. But the names are completely different to start off with, as well as the fact that he's going to see his wife, but then in the book it's his daughter, and the wife isn't even in the picture. So, and also in the book, he's a retired cop. In the film, he's still active. So when Jay lands in the book, he is picked up by a 70-year-old driver, and in the film it's a much younger guy. The 70-year-old driver basically drops him off and goes away. Argyle sticks around just in case some things don't work out with his estranged wife, to see if he can help him. And at the end, Argyle ends up like punching up one of the terrorists as well and being helpful. We also get a bit of backstory in the book as well about Jay and how he was an alcoholic, how his marriage is split up, how his wife is dead, how his daughter, he almost lost her, and everything like that, and sort of like seeing, and it does keep switching back to, because he did serve in World War II as well, and he's the main reason why a lot of procedures are in place in the cop world. So you get that blend in the book that you don't really get in the film. So when Jay gets to the building, in the film, he goes up to the party. It's relatively tame, apart from Ellis, who's doing cocaine, that he sees it, but he decides not to say anything. And so then he goes in and he goes, look, I need to go to the to scrunch my toes and orient myself, which is how he ends up barefoot. Now, in the book, the party seems a lot more raucous, with loads of younger people. He finds his daughter and then he goes to get cleaned up. And also as well, it's mentioned in the book that not only is his daughter there, but it's his grandchildren are there as well, which seems very, it's a raucous Christmas party at a Claxon Oil Institute. Why have you got your kids there? Never mind, I'm not gonna say anything. But also, so he goes to get himself cleaned up, takes his shoes and socks off, because it's a trick that he learned years ago. Now, with that as well, he's noted something as he's come in the building, and he's noted that there's a limo somewhere, and there's like a TV radio, and he notices that something's odd, but he just sort of, clocks it, but doesn't quite clock it yet. Then all hell breaks loose, and Jay ends up having to move to avoid being found. So when he does this, he leaves behind his socks and shoes, which he later really regrets. So in the film, he hears gunfire, but in the book, it's a sudden quiet and then one woman screaming that alerts him that something is not right. So in the book as well, Jay, when he moves, he recognises the guy who's caused the problems as Anton Gruber. So straight away, he knows who this person is that he's up against. Now, in the film, he only finds out it's Hans Gruber like quite later on, as he starts taking out the terrorists, essentially. So that's a huge difference, that he already knows in the book who the main guy is. So then he's moving around and trying to get a lay of the land, and he ends up seeing the head of the corporation, the CEO, shot by Gruber. Now in the film, we find out it's because Gruber wanted something from him that doesn't happen. In the book, you kind of get a hint of that later on, but it's not really obvious. It just, in his eyes, he sees something happen and then the main guy gets shot. So then Jay takes on and kills one of the terrorists. Now he writes a message on the dead body and sends it back to the remaining terrorists. And he also keeps the bag of the one he killed, and that pretty much remains the same as well. I think there's a little bit more language, as it were, in the film at this point, rather than in the book. Now in the film, he has now contacted the police through the radio he has stolen, but in the book he hasn't yet to do this. But in both, Jay ends up in a firefight with two of the terrorists. In the film, he kills them both and then throws one of the bodies out of the window onto the cop car that's been alerted, because the cop finally come around to check something out. They're about to leave, and then Jay throws a body out in the film. In the book, the terrorists are pretty much alive after this firefight, and then he attempts to contact the police. So in the book, he starts moving around through the vents because he's trying to find a way off the roof, whereas in the film, the reason he starts moving around in the vents is because of the fact that he's basically being chased off the roof by the terrorists who keep shooting at him, pretty much. So in the book, Jay now throws a body off the side. And by doing this, people are then going, oh no. So a cop car will come up, drives past, sees blood on the stairs and realises that something isn't right, and then sticks with it. He also then ends up killing a girl terrorist and stealing detonators as well. Now that is one thing that I have noticed, is in the film, it's pretty much only male terrorists, and they're all like big blonde German men. In the book, it's a mix of both men and women, and then obviously you've got Anton Gruber in charge. Now, in the film, at this point, Jay is communicating with a cop who's Sergeant Al Powell, and letting him know the situation, and then more cops are arriving and they're trying to take over, and Jay's like, no, none of you know what's going on. This guy believes me. I want to speak to Sergeant Al. But in the books, the cops are just arriving now and spotting that something isn't right. So in the books, the terrorists have broken glass in the stairwells because they've realised that he's barefoot. And so, they realise that they break the glass in the stairwells, he can't go up and down because he steps on the glass and he pretty much cuts his feet open and ends up tying towels around his feet, which I think in the film he ends up tying part of his vest around his feet. And it's because of a shootout on a floor where they shoot the glass because they realise that he's barefoot. Now in both, however, Jay does throw a bomb down an elevator shaft, which proves to be extremely successful, and sort of, blows out 2 floors. Then in the film, he kind of gets it in the neck from the police, being like, "What are you doing? Destructive property, blah, 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 blah." In the book, they don't really say anything. They do later, but like at this moment, they don't really say anything to him. So the cops are trying to mount an assault. Now in the book, they do it a lot earlier on in the film. In the film, they kind of do it, realise that it doesn't work, and then kind of back off. In the book, they kind of mount it, and then, again, doesn't work, back off. Now, in the film, we're getting Gruber giving off ridiculous demands as a distraction to the police because of the fact that what he wants is in a safe that he needs to get to, and he needs certain things to happen to get in that safe. So he's giving ridiculous demands off to the police so that they're left chasing their tails and not realising what's actually happening. In the book, Gruber doesn't actually speak to the police. I don't think he ever speaks to the police. He speaks to Jay, but he doesn't really speak to the police directly. Oh no, that's a lie. He does later, because when he starts giving off his manifesto and everything. Now in the book, we get a history of who Gruber is, how he came to be, where he's from, all his history and everything like that. In the film, we never really find out any of this. We just know that he's a terrorist, and that's it, really. In both, however, we do get Jay clashing with the top brass of the police, as they seem idiotic and keep putting him in harm's way with the questions that they're asking and the information that they're getting, and, calling him a liar at points as well, being like, "Well, you said this," and basically telling him that he's being a nuisance. And then he's like, "No, put Al back on." So then in both as well, we get Ellis, who is an absolute tool. I'm sorry, but he is. He pretends that he's friends with Jay and knows who Jay is to get him to stop. Now, obviously, in the book, it's Steph, who's Jay's daughter. It's Steffi's boyfriend, but also a top brass in the company. In the film, it's just someone in the company. And it's that scene with Jay being like, no, tell them you don't know me. They're going to kill you. And Ellis being like, "No, come on, mate. We go way back, blah, blah, blah." And then he dies. So then the police hold Jay responsible for Alice's death. But Jay's like, he would have died. There's nothing I could have done. If I'd have given them the detonator, everyone would die. So in both, you do get sort of back and forth conversations between Jay and the terrorists. Jay now gets shot in the book as well by one of the terrorists. And in both, they now know who he is. But in the film, it means that a reporter goes to Jay's house to talk to his kids, which then puts Ms. Gennaro, who's the estranged wife, in danger as well, because, Gruber's listening, watching the thing, sees the kids, sees the picture of the kids with Ms. Gennaro on the side, and realises, puts 2 and 2 together, who it is and who he's actually dealing with. But in the book, what they do is they talk to Al, but then they also talk to somebody else that Jay met on the airline. And it's sort of like a nice, lovely lady called Kathy, who he was hoping that something would happen with, but who knows. So in the film, things start getting desperate for the terrorists. They move the hostages to the roof for the police to take them because the roof is rigged to blow up. But in the book, the roof is never a viable option. In fact, we never really find out what they were going to do with the hostages. So, the terrorists, they take the hostages to the roof, and then at this point, Jay has realised in the film that the roof is going to blow, so gets the hostages to come running back downstairs, takes out a couple of the things. The roof does blow and takes out a helicopter, but obviously in the book, the helicopters are coming to try and support, air support. However, they get taken out by the terrorists, but it was never really a viable option for the hostages to be moved up there. In both, he does end up throwing himself off a roof using a water hose because helicopters were coming in. In the film, it's because the roof then blows up. In the book, it's just tactical. And at this point in the film, both Gruber and Jay have already met face to face. This doesn't happen because, like, Gruber's pretending to be somebody else, pretending to have escaped the terrorists, and obviously Jay figures out who he is. In the book, he doesn't meet until he takes him out, basically. So in both, Jay is preparing for a final showdown. In the film, at this point, Argyle, the limo driver, has also helped mess up the getaway vehicle of the terrorists. The final showdown in the film is between Jay, his wife, and Gruber, as the rest of the hostages have escaped. In the book, it's between Jay, Gruber, and his daughter. Now, in the film, he takes out Gruber. Gruber falls out the window, almost drags the wife, but then gets released. He falls to his death, the wife survives. In the book, is a lot darker. Jay shoots Gruber. Gruber falls out the window and drags the daughter with him. So both the daughter and Gruber die at this point. So you've got that, and in both, Jay tapes a gun to his back when he goes to meet Gruber, because that's how he basically pulls it out and shoots him. So the film ends with Jay and his wife coming out, and Carl, who's been like a big blonde terrorist throughout the film, trying to kill them and getting shot down by Sergeant Al. In the book, it ends with Jay taking out one more terrorist, and then going out of the building, Carl showing up, shooting a lot of people, and then Sergeant Al taking Carl out. And then it kind of just ends there with him being like, I need to go to hospital. So the plots are hugely different. For one, as I said, the book is Claxon Oil, and the terrorists are supposedly there because the company is dealing arms in Chile, so they wanted to steal $6 million. In the film, it's because they just want to steal the wealth, and they realise that there's like bearer bonds in there that they can use. It's the Nakatomi company, as I said in the film there. The film brought his wife back to life, made his children right young, put him back in active service, you know, made him more of a younger, you know, gunslinger, as it were. They also made the limo driver Argyle more of a character, and pretty much switched most of it up. They also ignored anything to do with the past, in regards to sort of like having anything to do with him recounting his alcoholism, you know, his service during World War II. I think that's just to do with the setting, really. They also changed his name from Joseph Leland to John McClane. Now, I prefer the name John McClane, but again, I think because I watched the film first, I think that did have a massive clouding effect on when I was reading the book. But for the plot, it gets a 3 out of 4 for me. There were so many differences. Now, overall, as I said, they've changed the name, they've changed the age, they've changed the characters, they've changed the setting, they've changed the time period. I think the only thing they kept is that one guy takes on all these terrorists and survives. That's pretty much the only thing that they kept the same. Obviously, they kill off the daughter as well in the book, which, you know, the wife survives in the film. They even changed the main name of the terrorist from Anton Gruber to Hans Gruber. But I think that actually worked in its favour. I think they took an okay book and they made it into an absolutely fantastic blockbuster. So I think, you know, with those changes, I can understand why they did it. But overall, they've literally changed everything from the book pretty much to the film. And so honestly, I think this is a unique case where the film is better than the book, and it gets a 3 out of 10 overall for me. Now, this is my own opinion, of course. I'm happy to hear if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said. If there's any book to film adaptations that you'd like me to do, please leave it below in the comments. Don't forget to click subscribe so you can be alerted when there's a new video. Now, don't forget to join me next time for my contented narrative around A Monster Calls. But until then, guys, remember to always keep it contento.